Thank you for joining us today for our webinar. A couple things. First of all, we are recording the session today, so you will get a link to be able to review that, watch it again. If you miss something, we'll have it out there for you. Also, at any time during the day, if you have, or during the webinar, if you have a question, feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can type in those questions. We'll try to answer them as best we can online or at the end. And if need be, we'll be able to follow up with you afterwards. So I'm excited about today's webinar. We're looking at Acumatica 2024 R1, some of the new features of the new release. And today I'd like to welcome Stacy as our presenter. So Stacy, I'm going to hand it over to you. Maybe you can do a little introduction about yourself and then we can get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks everyone for joining. This is Stacy Pohl from Cal Business Solutions. I lead the Acumatica team here at Cal Business Solutions. I know I've worked with many of you here on the phone call today, so happy to have you join us all, and really excited to take you through some of the new features in the latest release of 24R1. I will say I did sneak in a couple from 23R2 because I do know that a lot of our current client base is just upgrading to either 23R2 or 24R1. So a couple changes that I thought would be helpful and important for you all to see. So I did sneak in a couple features from that release as well. Given the short hour that we have together, I tried to take a few features from, quite a few different areas across Acumatica, from financial to distribution to retail to just some general system features to give everyone a nice flavor across the entire system as far as what's new. So I am going to jump into the presentation here. The presentation is going to consist of some live displays of the new features within the Acumatica application, as well as a walkthrough of features within a PowerPoint presentation. So it will be a combination of both of those. I am going to start with some of the new features that I'm actually going to demonstrate within the application first. All right, so let me bring up my Acumatica instance. Give me one moment to switch here. All right, so I am logged in here to a local instance of Acumatica 2024 R1. And we are going to kick off today's demonstration with a few features here in the finance module. So in the finance module, Acumatica previously did not have a way to, when I say financial modules, let me clarify, it is your core financial features, AP, AR, GL, things like that across the finance core modules. So what I'm going to talk about first is some new functionality that Acumatica has added to the cash purchases documents that you will find in the payables workspace. So in previous versions, a user can create a cash purchase document to record a purchase for which the payment was made, right at the time of the purchase. You weren't entering in a bill and then remitting payment at a later date. Okay. Now, if a full or a partial refund had to be recorded against this cash purchase, it was impossible to reverse the cash purchase, and the user was required to void it. But in 24R1, the cash processing functionality has been enhanced, and now a user can create a return type document off of this cash purchase transaction. So in the cash purchase transaction, there is this new type called cash return. Okay. Now, a cash return transaction can be created independent of the fact that there was a cash purchase previously, okay, or a cash return transaction can be created automatically by pulling up a previous cash return, cash purchase document, which I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pull up one that was previously created. And under my action menu now, you will see I have this action called return. So if I select the return, this will create a cash return document allowing me to return all or a portion of that cash purchase that was previously recorded. I would proceed to process this by removing hold and go ahead and releasing that. So again, you can do a partial return versus what was there previously. You would have to do a void, and it would be a void on the entire document. So again, this is a new feature, cash returns. That is a new document type under the cash purchase transaction and payables. Okay. The next feature we're going to talk about is the ability to have options when you have it like an early pay discount on whether or not it is going to be, the entire amount is going to be taxable or not. So some companies, right, they have these early pay discounts. And if a customer pays within a certain date prior to 24R1, unless you are using the Canadian localization feature, the cash discount, okay, was applied to the entire document. So tax included, all right? In 24R1, Acumatica introduced a new feature that gives you some controls as to whether or not you want a cash discount to be applied when you're taking that to the entire document amount, right? Or just the taxable amount. So just the details within that document. So this new setting can be found in the company screen. I'm going to navigate using my universal search to companies. And you're going to find this new option here, cash discount base. Do we want the customer to be able to, or do we want to be able to take that cash discount here on just the document, on the entire document amount, or the document amount less taxes? So this is a feature that is company specific. If you have multiple companies inside the same Acumatica tenant, you could have a different option, right, depending on the company. The third new feature that we're going to find in core financials is cash discounts in terms for credit memos. Okay? So previously, when you entered a credit memo, okay, the customer or vendor payment term was not taken into consideration. Your credits, they did not age. They always stayed current. Right? So users had no way to specify the due date, right, in a credit memo. And as a result of that, the credit memo, when you looked at an aging report, always had was always like in your current bucket. Right? So credit memos, with that, if you're using the cash flow forecasting functionality, credit memos, right, couldn't be used, right, in that cash flow forecasting. Right? Also, cash discounts, if you have like an early pay discount, that couldn't be taken into consideration for your credit memos. Okay. So there is a new feature that allows you, it's in accounts receivable preferences, okay, to use credit terms, whether it be a net 30 or a discounted term like a 2% 10 net 30. There's a new feature here that does allow you to apply those terms in your credit memos. Okay, that feature right here is down on the bottom. Use credit terms in credit memos. So to help facilitate this example, I created a couple of documents for us already. Okay, so I have an invoice I'm going to open up. And I will have a credit memo. I'm going to get that loading as well. So here, my invoices and memos, you're going to see that for my AA customer, right? This customer has a payment term, a 3% 10, right? Net 30, meaning if they pay within within 10 days, they get a 3% discount. Now, I also created a credit memo here that I have not yet applied. And in this credit memo, you're now going to notice that there is a credit term. Prior versions, you would not see this field on a credit memo. In conjunction with this credit term being on the credit memo, you're going to see there is now a due date and a cash discount date. Again, these two fields were not part of this type of transaction prior to 24R1. Okay. So what does this mean? This means now, let's say I'm going to go and I'm going to go record a payment for AA customer. So I'm going to come over to my payments and applications. And I'm going to create a payment. AA customer. And you'll notice when all of my documents load, okay, because the due date and the cash discount date, right, is within the time frame of that credit memo, which is the second line right here, and the invoice down here, okay, you'll notice that it's automatically taking a cash discount on both of those. So that's a demonstration of the cash discount feature in receivables, as well as now to have the ability to be able to age your credits. The next feature is, I know has been a big gap because here at Cal, we actually wrote a little customization for quite a few of our clients where when they do a check run, the system would create and print checks, but not in alphabetical order. You had no control over the sorting, right, of how those check numbers were going to get assigned and how they were going to print. For organizations where you're still trying to like match up a paper, document, the actual bill to that check, it became very challenging trying to find the right check, right, to match with those paper bills. So in 24R1, in payables, if I go over to my process payments and print checks, I already have a check run built. Okay. Now you have the ability, if you were to sort, ascending, descending, however you like, either on the vendor ID or the vendor name, when you print your checks, Acumatica is going to assign the check number in the order that they're displaying here in the list. Versus how it was previously, it was based off of how you actually selected them when you built your check run. So again, that I know fills a big gap for quite a few of our users where to help facilitate that for them previously, we wrote a small customization that would sort them in alphabetical order. Okay. The next feature that I'm going to show you, this is a 23R2 feature. And in 23R2, on the sales order, the invoice, and this is a sales invoice and a purchase order, Acumatica has added more details. Let me just start over here. More details to the header of these transactions. So I'm going to open up an existing sales order. And up here in the header, previously, you did not see items such as detail totals, right? That's the total of all your line details, or your line discounts, or your document discounts. You had to navigate down into like the total section to get that level of information. So it was more clicking to find that. So Acumatica has moved those totals up here now into the header to give you better visibility. In the totals tab, there are some additional fields here that were created, such as now Acumatica is summing up all of your goods versus your miscellaneous charges. Okay? So coming over here to my details, it's basically like my stock and my non-stock items. So it's giving you totals on those separately instead of just combining it into one lump sum group. It also breaks out for you line discounts versus document discounts, which you weren't seeing previously. There's some estimated margins that were also added. Again, these estimates are based off of either your average or your last cost, depending on how things are set up in your system. That cost is based off of that, and it's giving you your percentage as well as your margin amount. So you'll see totals like this being added again to the sales order. You'll see it on the sales order invoice. So here again, you see your details, your line discounts broken up differently. And then on the purchase orders, if I navigate to purchase orders, you'll see more details in the header of that document type as well. So again, your detail totals and line and document discounts, should you be utilizing those here in Acumatica. Continuing in our kind of sales purchasing modules, I'm going to navigate back over into sales, and Acumatica has added some enhancements to returns. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to open up my sales order list here. And I am going to look for sales order number 8203. Do a contains. Okay. So here is a sales order that I have. Okay. You will notice over here on my side panels, there's a new side panel called Related Return Documents. I'm going to open that up. What this side panel gives you visibility to is any linked returns to this transaction. So you can see for that order, right, there has been a return that has been processed, and it tells me which items were included on that return. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this sales order. I just returned one of the many items that were on this list. Okay. Again, when I have the sales order open, I have the same related return documents side panel that I can pop open from here and I can look at as well, giving me the same information, giving me the return order, as well as the item that was returned. So if I want to create another return out of this, right, I'm going to hit my plus button and I'm just going to change my order type. I'm going to do a simple credit memo. And my customer was Ulta Ace. So I'm just going to search for Ulta Ace. And I'm going to hit my add invoice button down here. So what I'm showing you now, this is still just standard functionality that you all should be used to if you're processing returns. However, when you get into this add invoice details screen, you're going to see there is some additional like parameters that you can use to help find, right, something that you're looking to return. So you can look for items using the inventory ID to see, if they're presenting you with, an item I want to return. You can look to see when it's purchased by putting in that inventory ID. You can look up by the invoice number. Right? So if I pull this here, this was the return we were looking on. This is going to show me all the items, right, that have not yet been returned. Okay. So just to demonstrate the inventory, let's say they're returning the Hershey chocolate kisses. If I take my invoice number out and I look for my Hershey chocolate kisses, right, this is going to show me all of the orders and invoices, right, that this product has been purchased on. So then you can go ahead and you can make your selection, right, and you can return. The other nice new feature with the returns is, let's say you have a non-stock kit, right, where this kit contains maybe some Hershey candy kisses and some Reese's and some peanut butter cups, but they're not returning the entire kit. They're just returning one of the components, right, one of the items within the kit. You can turn this on if you do have kits to show the actual components versus the full kit item, and you can return just one of the components that was purchased from that non-stock kit. So I think that's really a really powerful new feature. So I would just make my selection of what I'm returning, add and close. And then as far as the remainder of this process, right, for the sake of time, I'm not going to actually complete this and push it to the invoicing module, which would create a credit memo. But the standard functionality that exists today, you would pick up with that to finish processing your transaction here. So again, some really nice new powerful features to allow you to find those items using that add invoice, to also just return components of non-stock kits. And then as we looked at, we have that related items inquiry that shows you the return document as well as the items that were returned. So this is probably one of my favorite new features here in 24R1, because there just wasn't a lot of visibility to returns, right? What was going on with the different documents prior to now. All right. Acumatica, next feature. Acumatica has improved controls on entering and removing sales orders from credit holds. Okay. So previously, if a customer was on credit hold, I'm going to queue myself up a sales order here. If a customer was on credit hold and you went to create a sales order, you would not find that customer. Just go to the subtype. You would not find that customer here in your lookup, right? They were filtered out, and this lookup was just a list of active customers. Now in 24R1, when a customer is on credit hold, you will find the customer here in your list. Okay. When you create the order and you remove hold, the system is going to put that order in a credit hold status versus putting it in an open status. So as an example here, I have a customer that I have on credit hold, Plaza. Okay. You'll notice here, I've got this little warning telling me this customer is on credit hold. Okay. And the way this order type is set up, because this order type is not set to go on hold automatically, you'll notice here, this credit hold Okay, status is automatically assigned. So again, it's letting me enter the order even though the customer is on credit hold. However, I can't do anything with this order, right, until we remove the hold. Okay. If I try to remove hold for this customer, I'm going to get a pop-up error that says, nope, you can't do that. The customer status is credit hold. So again, it's kind of, it's locking users down where they cannot process the order. However, they can get the order in the system, even though the customer is on credit hold. So you can take action on reaching out to your customer. So that's a I think pretty powerful new feature. Again, it was really hard previously when you had a customer on credit hold and you had someone to go put in an order and they couldn't find the customer. If you've got thousands and thousands of customers, right, you're just going to think, oh, this is a new customer, right? And you may enter that customer again because you didn't have visibility to the fact that they existed but were on credit hold. Okay. I'm gonna just move over to generic inquiries right now. There's a couple new things in the generic inquiry tool that I want to mention. So when you create a new generic inquiry, okay, there is this new button here called Publish to the UI. What this Publish to the UI does is it basically will expose this inquiry to the Acumatica sitemap. Previously, if you wanted to make this inquiry available through the sitemap, meaning, right, if I go through one of the workspaces, right, I can find that generic inquiry here. There was just a single little checkbox that you would turn on. Okay. With this publish to the UI setting, not only does it allow you to continue to allow you to say where within Acumatica do I want to find this new inquiry. So if this was like a payables inquiry, right, I can put it in my payables workspace under inquiries, and you could see the screen number that it's going to assign. So you still have that functionality, but here's where the enhancement really comes in. There's this new access rights. So previously, whenever you created a new inquiry, everyone had access to it, unless you reached out to your system administrator or whoever managed your security and you asked them to put security around that GI. Okay. Here, the user creating the generic inquiry, okay, has some options where they can grant this inquiry to all roles. They can revoke it for all roles. But I think what's going to be more handy than that is they can copy the access from another inquiry. So if they know that this inquiry is like similar to maybe like a list of bills, AP bills, they can pick that AP bill screen and say, give this new inquiry the same security as this other one. And that way not all users have access. And that way you're not always having to reach out to a system administrator, right, to give proper access here to the new inquiry. So I think this is a great feature that is going to be helpful to those who are creating generic inquiries as well as people who are managing security. One other feature in here I wanted to note, and if you want a further demonstration of this, reach out to Cal. We can give this to you. This gets to be a bit more complex, but I do want to note that under your data sources, Acumatica, I do a lookup here. Acumatica has added a new source for data. Okay. So previously, when we built generic inquiries, right, we had to work within the scope of just using the tables or the objects that Acumatica made available to us. We now have the ability to use generic inquiries as a source for a new generic inquiry that we're creating. So What this acts as is like a subquery. So for those of you who are familiar with SQL and the subquery concept in a generic inquiry, right? Before this, you did not have subquery type functionality. But because you can build a generic inquiry and now use that as a source for another one, this is really conceptually the same thing as using building a subquery and including that here into your generic inquiry. Okay. So this is going to minimize the need for a Cal or even yourself to be writing SQL views to report on. We won't have to do SQL views any longer because we have this subquery / generic inquiry data source now as an option to us. Okay, so I know it gets probably a little bit more technical than a lot of the users on the phone, but for anyone on the phone that is familiar with that concept, I think you're going to be pretty excited about that. All right, I am going to jump over into CRM and I'm going to open up my case transaction. So the CRM module, for those of you who may not know, the CRM module also has a case management module. I'm going to show you a couple new features here that are included with the case management module within CRM. So I'm going to open up a new case. And Acumatica has made some improvements as far as how we're able to track due dates based on severity. Okay. With this new tracking of due dates and putting times around that, it gives us better visibility to the SLAs, right, for different case types. We can add a solutions provided. What that's going to mean, and I'll demonstrate to you, is if I send an email to someone that outlines the solution, right, for this case, on the case, I can actually reference that email. So if I'm ever doing like an audit of the cases, I know which email communication, right, included the solution to the case. We can add an extension of time if we have to change the severity case. Maybe it was low, we have to go to high. We can add some time, again, so that it will update the expected resolution date and time. And we also now can force the case closure notes. So I'm going to drill into the case class to begin. And in the case class now, okay, we have some new settings. We have this checkbox here that says, do we want to require case closure notes? Okay. Do I want to track solutions in my activities? So my emails that I'm going to send out that outlines the solution. And then over here in this commitments tab, here's where we're able to define different severity levels and what the target response time, initial response time is, the target response time, and then that resolution extension that I was talking about if we have to change that severity. Okay. So with those settings, as I create a new case, I'm going to go and I'm going to pick a customer. And just say we need some product support. I'm going to enter the date and time that this issue was reported to us. And we have our severity levels, and within severity, there also is priority. I'm just going to keep this a medium severity. If you wanted to add details, for those of you that aren't familiar with cases, this details section is intended for you to basically record notes, right, about what the product support issue is. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit save. So you'll notice here, as soon as I hit save, I have an initial response time, due date and time, and a resolution due date. Okay. This is all coming from those settings that we looked at on the case class. Because we're tracking initial response time and resolution due dates and times, we can use this information, right, to drive our dashboard reporting, to let us know what we have coming up, right, what's past due, things like that. So I'm going to open this case up. When I open it, it's going to want me to assign an owner to it. So assign an owner, right? And then the assumption is, right, Alberto would start communicating with Alta Ace on this product issue. Right? So we're going to fast forward, right? And we're going to assume Alberto has completed all his communication. He is ready to respond to the customer with his resolution. Okay? Under the activities tab, okay, if I create an email, system's automatically going to send it out to my contact there over Alt Ace. Here's where I can, outline my solution. Put in my details here, okay? But this is that new feature, that case solution provided checkbox that I can select so that I know this is the email. If I had 10 different communications with the customer, right, on this particular case, this particular email is the email that provided the solution. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save and I'll send that. Okay. That gets logged in our activities, just like any kind of email activity. Okay. But under the CRM info, okay, there's this solutions provided in. Here's where I can reference that email for a future reference. So someone coming in here wants to know, okay, what was the communication that actually provided the solution? I have that right here, and I can drill into it, and it will pop open that very specific email. I don't have to go searching for it. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close down my case because I am done with that. Because I turned on that new setting, right, that I require closure notes, right? I get this little pop-up here where I'm able to do my closure notes. I also could have specified, right, the email here that provided the solution as well. And that would have filled that in that field that I just took you to. So I can enter in my closure notes. Okay. And what that does is on my closure notes tab, that writes the notes that conclude this case. So some really great features, I think, to, cases to give you better management of, again, resolution times, initial response times. It's really all intended to be able to drive that dashboard reporting, being able to add closure notes, and then also reference that email that was the source of the solution for this particular case. Okay. All right, I am going to jump over into my PowerPoint now where we are going to walk through some additional new features. So give me a moment to get that set up. All right, so in actually 23R2 and 24R1, there was even some additional functionality added. Acumatica has introduced what's called Acumatica payments. So for any of you using Acumatica today, and you have integrated credit card processing, if you're not using like an authorized.net, you're being forced to go out to an outside provider, such as an eBiz or a Repay. There's a handful of them out there. And they will offer you a credit card solution. Well, with 23R2 as well as 24R1, Acumatica has now introduced their own integrated credit card processing. They've partnered with a company called Fortis, where Acumatica is maintaining the connector, right, from Acumatica to Fortis. There's no customization project required for this. This is all embedded right into the core 24R1 platform, this connector. Okay. And with the Acumatica payments, it gives functionality such as a click to pay option, where you can have a link embedded into your invoice documents, your sales order documents, so that when you email those documents to your customers, they can click the link and it opens up that transaction in the Acumatica payment portal where your customer can go make payment on that invoice. They've also included the ability to integrate credit card terminals with their payment processing engine. So if you're a retail operation and you're collecting credit cards from your customers, right, they're present. They have, EMV card insert kind of terminals where they can capture signatures, and that information will automatically integrate back into Acumatica. No double entry recording that payment. It just flows right in. Now, when you sign up for Acumatica payments, Acumatica does provide to you for free their customer portal, okay? The AR portion of their customer portal. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the fact, Acumatica does have a customer portal where customers could go, they could place orders, right? If you have the case management system, right, they can open cases, they can review their cases with you as an organization. And then there's an AR portion of this where you can download statements, you can review invoices on your system, on your account, and you can record credit card payments on those invoices. So when you buy Acumatica payments, you get the AR portion of the customer portal for free, which will allow your customers to access their statements, their invoices, and make credit card or ACH payments online through this portal. Okay, so with the Acumatica payments, they do have credit card processing, but they also have ACH processing. We have a lot of prospects and customers that are transitioning over from their current platform to Acumatica payments today as they're upgrading. We have found in every instance, Acumatica has matched, or even a lot of cases, has come in and has provided huge savings with their rates. So not only is this going to be more efficient for you, but it's going to be more cost effective using this new Acumatica payments option. If you're interested in pursuing this, learning more about this, just reach out to Cal and we will be happy to introduce you to the Acumatica payments team where they can provide you with a full demo of that functionality. Okay. Avalara. So I know we have a lot of customers that are using Avalara today as their sales tax engine. We also have quite a few customers that are using the exemption cert management module with Avalara. That's an additional optional module, right? You can purchase. And this exemption certificate management module is intended to help you manage all of your sales tax certs to make sure that you're compliant. So today, prior to 24R1, you are managing all these certificates in the Avalara platform, right? You weren't able to see, view, take any action on that within Acumatica. With 24R1 now, right, Acumatica actually has an Avalara integration for their exempt cert management module. So this is going to streamline the whole certificate management process without having to leave the Acumatica platform. Okay. Some of the functionality that you get with that is you can create, update, right, delete customers with certs. You can do that individually. You can do it, they call it bulk or like mass processing. Okay. You can retrieve your customer's current exemption status. Right? So when you are in your customer card, you can go ahead and you can retrieve certificates. When you retrieve that certificate, it opens up this exemption certificate window where they have multiples, right? Because they do business in multiple states. You can click that hyperlink, and it will actually open up a copy of that PDF exemption certificate right there from Acumatica. If you have some that are expired, or maybe you're just requesting them for the first time, there is a request certificate option where you can have Acumatica send an email to your billing contact, or you can even override it on the screen. Whoever should get that email, and you can have templates set up in Acumatica so it'll automatically send that email out with the language that you want included in the body of that. Got different reasons, right, for the exemption that you can include that is communicated to your customer when you issue this request. Okay, so I think this is a huge change for those that are using the exempt cert management. Having it be in a disconnected another system, right? I've just seen it cause, gaps, issues in the past. So this kind of brings it all together with the Avalara integration that currently exists for your tax calculations, now with your cert exemptions. Okay. If you're interested in learning more about this, again, you can reach out to Cal, or you can reach out to your Avalara rep. They would be happy to take you through what it would take to add on that exempt certificate management module to your subscription. Access rights, moving on to more of a another system level function here. So prior to 24R1, for those of you who maintain security, okay, you will know that Acumatica has an access right called not set. Okay. Not set tends to be a little bit confusing because it could mean that there's no security to anyone, right? Or it could just be certain users don't have security. So the way this works for people who aren't familiar with it is not set, right? Means everyone can see that screen when that form or screen is not assigned to any roles. Okay, so if you never assigned it to a role, that means that this screen is wide open to everybody. Okay, the minute you assign that screen to just one role with that not set function, now anyone that has not set, that screen's revoked. So it's just really confusing, right, to try to manage that. So with 24R1, Acumatica has removed this not set access right, and they replaced it with the revoke. So now you're not going to have to look at a screen and say to myself, is it really revoked or not? Because again, not set could mean it's revoked if it's not part of any role, or if it is part of one role, it's revoked. So it just, again, eliminates so much confusion with how this access rights works. So when you upgrade to 24R1, what that is going to look like during the upgrade process is Acumatica is going to change this access right that is currently set to not set. It's going to set it to revoke in all instances. Okay. Going to cover a payroll feature here where Acumatica has been slowly improving the pay time off functionality, I would say, in every release. Although this one here, I think they really did a really great job, kind of, I won't say finalizing, but adding a lot of the functionality I think people were looking for when they're looking for a system to manage their paid time off. So some of the improvements that they made for all of you payroll users out there, Acumatica payroll users, is you now can roll over PTO based on an anniversary date or a specific date. Okay, it's not year end anymore. You can have tiered PTO bases based on like years of service. The PTO bank IDs used to be really limited. I think it was like 4 characters. They've opened that up to 15 characters. That's going to allow you to create PTO bank IDs with a much more intuitive name. We can add probationary periods, which I'll show you in a moment. We can front load hours, right? The front loading hours can be combined with a calculation of accruing of hours by percentage. There's a really nice new window where you can view all your employees' PTO balances, and they have simplified the PTO adjustment. You could adjust PTO previously. It was not super easy. They've created a new transaction, which you'll see, that allows you to quickly be able to adjust PTO hours for whatever reason. So down here on this next page is some screenshots, right, of these new features that I just talked about. So they have this enhanced accrual method, which is total hours per year. This is where that the ID, they expanded to 15 characters. There's a new transfer date, right, which you can go, you could be based now on the employee's anniversary date if you would like, versus again, that year end. And then we have these banding rules. So I think this is huge. This has been probably the most asked request for any customer that we've worked with using payroll. And what this allows you to do is basically set up tiers for what your accrued payroll hours are going to be for your employees based on years of service. So currently today, right, you can't, if they have the anniversary date that puts them into their next tier, you have to remember to go like increase the number of hours that get accrued. You can't set that up ahead of time. Where here now you have the ability to set up these tiers. So when they meet that next tier for that anniversary date, Acumatica will start accruing at whatever that new hours per year are. There is also this probationary period functionality that gets added to that PTO bank. So you can specify what the probation period is for a new employee when you're setting them up. Okay. And based on this setting, the system will either accrue or not accrue, or it will accrue and allow your employees to take the time immediately, right? Or not take the time until their probation period is up. So again, this was all having to be managed manually prior to these enhancements. So again, anyone using payroll that have, PTO policies, definitely going to be able to take advantage of these new configurations. This is the new PTO adjustment screen. So if you have to add or reduce hours, you can easily come into this window and just put in a transaction, right? What I like is you've got these reason codes that you can create as to why you are making these manual adjustments. Because normally, right, PTO will either get incremented, right? Or it will come out of your hours based on when you're processing payroll. This transaction is outside of payroll processing, and these are manual adjustments. But again, this example here, right, is showing that this employee, Tony, is getting some additional payroll, right, for a bonus or an incentive. And then down here on the bottom is just a preview of the new PTO screen where you can look at the PTO balances for a specific range of time for employees across all the different banks that you have. In this case, you can see Michael Andrews, right, has basically 5 different banks of PTO time. So some really nice enhancements, again, fills a lot of gaps for our payroll users. Okay. Quickly, some enhancements to our retail edition. So Acumatica has added some enhancements to the connector that syncs data back and forth between like Shopify and BigCommerce and Acumatica. And the 3 that they've enhanced are your stock items, non-stock items, and template items. So prior to 24R1, right, you can export your items from Acumatica and you could sync it up to one of those platforms. With the new version, right, you are now able to either import from those platforms or you could set up a bi-directional sync. Okay. Now, because they're allowing you to sync from these platforms or have bi-directional, they've added some additional options on your connector configurator, where if you're importing items, let's say from BigCommerce, what does Acumatica do with the item number? What is it used for an item number? So there's some settings here where you can create a numbering scheme that would be used. If you want to have Acumatica control the numbering, okay, there's also functionality where you actually could use the SKU number from BigCommerce or Shopify as your Acumatica item number. Also, when items are created, right, you have to assign an item class. So again, there's some defaults, or you could use substitution lists to let the system know when these items are getting created from these external systems, what item class to assign to them. So real quickly here's a screenshot of an example when we're importing an item using the Acumatica numbering scheme, right? So in the configurations, right, we have a numbering scheme set up. This is the inventory number from BigCommerce. you'll see when it comes into Acumatica, it's using Acumatica's numbering scheme. It is assigning a different inventory ID. However, down in the relations here, you will see it actually will store that external SKU. So it does automatically create that relation, that cross-reference for you with your BigCommerce or Shopify SKU number. Quickly, an example of importing an item where it's using the BigCommerce or the Shopify SKU. Okay, so if you have it set up that way, here's your BigCommerce SKU number. When it comes into Acumatica, right, it could use that same SKU. So Acumatica is just increasing flexibility, right, for managing those types of records between the two systems. Our last feature that we're going to talk about today is DRP. You might say to yourself, what's DRP? DRP is stands for Distribution Requirements Planning. So for those of you who may have worked like on manufacturing space previously, you may be familiar with the concept of MRP, Manufacturing Requirements Planning. That's very, very common. Most manufacturing modules have a feature for MRP. Okay. And what that does really, in whether it's DRP or MRP, is it helps you balance your supply and demand for an item based on their item settings. Okay. So when you're setting up an item, right, if you want to set up for DRP, you can tell the system, do we buy it? Do we make it? Do we transfer it? Okay. And then it can provide exceptions, right, to changes, moves, and cancel existing supply orders, as you'll see in some of the screenshots as I kind of take you through this process. The goals of DRP is to prevent any company from either running out of inventory or having too much inventory, right? That could be as big of a problem as running out of inventory. Oops. So again, DRP, it's going to help you balance that supply and demand, right? What are your demands, right? Demands are your different types of transactions in the systems, sales orders, transfers, and those all have specific shipment dates associated with them. There are forecasts that you can put into the system, which we'll look at, that can create a demand. Kit components, right? If you are selling non-stock kits or stock kits today with Acumatica's current replenishment module, right? It doesn't look at, do we need to buy components for these kits that we have to make? It doesn't create that demand, which is kind of a big gap today with today's replenishments. The DRP will replace that replenishment module with its functionality. Okay. And as it builds out those plans, right, it's gonna plan those at the action dates, and then it's also going to take into consideration your safety stock. Right. Your supply, okay. Your supply is, what do I already have on hand? What's already on order, right? And kit assemblies can supply. Right. So those are your different sources of supplies. So it tries to look at, what do I have for demand? What do I have for supply? It tries to balance that when you run this DRP process to tell you what you need to purchase. So in Acumatica, on the stock item card, there's a new planning method called DRP. Okay. Again, if you're using replenishments today, DRP, if you purchase this module, this will replace your inventory replenishments. Okay. A lot of the DRP configurations, they're going to be found in your inventory planning tab of your item card. Okay. As well as like your item warehouse details. That's where a lot of times where you manage, what is your safety stock, things like that. What's my vendor lead time? All right. So once you have all that information set up on your item, okay, Acumatica has this inventory planning area or workspace, okay, where you can regenerate your inventory planning. So that regenerate is kind of like running your replenishments if you're using that today, where it's going to tell you what you need to buy, what you need to transfer, and what you need to make if you're doing kits. All right. Now, before you regenerate that, right, it's going, if you want to put in some forecasting, so maybe you've got highs and lows to your business and you have some, maybe you're running some promotions or marketing campaigns and you are forecasting like significant growth for some items. You can create a forecast transaction, right? For what you're predicting that you're going to sell for each period there out in the future. So when you run this planning, it's going to look at your forecast. It's also going to look at all the kit components for kit assemblies that you have or that you need to build. It's going to look at existing sales orders, and it's going to take into consideration your reorder points and your safety stock, as well as your vendor lead times. Okay. It's not going to tell you to prematurely buy something if you don't need it, let's say 2 months from now. Okay. Or maybe you don't need it for 2 months from now, but vendor lead times, right, are so far out that it's going to tell you need to order it today. So it's looking at all these different settings here so that when you run your regenerate inventory planning function, okay, it comes up with basically a replenishment plan for you. And that replenishment plan includes items that you need to purchase, transfer, or if you make these through a kit assembly, it will create the kit assemblies for you. So you could take action on any of these where the system automatically would create that purchase order, create that transfer, or create that kit assembly to fulfill that demand. Okay. You see there's a lot of information in this screen, such as if the demand is coming from, transactions that are out there, such as sales orders, or here's some forecast transactions, right? It's telling you so you can drill into those. You can look at those if you'd like. You could also, maybe do some purchasing just for certain vendors. You can apply filters there. So you're buying just for certain vendors. And then you can also see under this type column, where's that demand coming from? Is it from a sales order? Is it from a forecast? It's getting cut off a little bit, but it's planned kit assembly component. So this is a component within a kit that needs to be made so that either it can fulfill a sales order demand or bring you back up to your maximum quantities that you have on hand. So again, benefits of DRP, right? It's one centralized location where it's going to not only suggest, right, but can actually generate those replenishments based on those multiple sources of system demand that we talked about. The sales orders, the forecast, the kit components, right? And then we'll create those purchase orders, transfer orders, and kit assemblies for you automatically. And it's going to do all of this again while taking into consideration those shipment dates that you have to your customers in conjunction with your lead times, right? So that you have better inventory management. Now, if you'd like a full demo of this is probably one of the more complex areas, I would say, of the distribution module, because there's a lot of different pieces that come into play that have to be configured to get all this working together. So it's a little bit of a lengthy process. We would be happy to give you a demo of that in full if you would like. It's just a lot to take you through all those screens today. But if you'd like a demo of that, you can just reach out to Cal and we will walk you through a scenario that's applicable to you and your business. So that concludes the new features that we were showing you today. I hope that you all found some that were beneficial to you. You could take them back with you to your workplace and put those into action. If you're not running 24R1 today, reach out to to Cal. You can either reach out to the consultant that you work with, or you can reach out to sales@calzone.com or give us a call. We'd be happy to work with you on getting that upgrade and process for you. Also, if you have any other further questions about the demo or today's presentation, please feel free to reach out to us.
That was great. Thank you, Stacy. I learned a lot.
I'm glad.
We did have a couple questions come in. One of them, one of your clients is on an always update plan. And so they're just wondering about the process of upgrading. Maybe that's something we reach out to them afterwards so you can get more specifics on their exact environment. And then, what was the other one?
I will say one thing on the always current, because we may have several
Okay.
on that plan that are with us today. So the always current plan today is still running off of 23R2. When they upgrade you every month at the moment, it is to a new build of 23R2. They are not doing 24R1 every month at this time. However, we can request that upgrade if you would like to 24R1. And then from there on, you will get a monthly build update for the 24R1 version.
Okay.
They usually wait about six-ish months or so after there's a major release before they upgrade the always current to that major release. So they keep them just on the build upgrades for their current version for that time period.
Okay. I'll make sure that I send over this client's contact info. And you
Sure.
guys can connect afterwards too, in case there's further questions. One other one that came in about upgrading then, if somebody's on an older version of Acumatica, do you have to go through like each version to upgrade, or can you skip forward and go to 2024R1 right away?
Yeah, no, you can skip forward, and that's the beauty of having Acumatica do all these upgrades. When Cal puts in the upgrade request, we just say what version you want to go to, and Acumatica will skip all of those versions in between.
Great. I don't see any other questions coming in, but thank you very much for taking the time and showing all the some of the great new features of Acumatica. I will follow up with you with the client questions. And other than that, I'll hang out on the webinar for a little bit in case anyone still submits a question, but thank you for your time today. That was great.
Thank you, everyone.